Welcome to the Military Money Manual podcast. I'm Spencer, founder of MilitaryMoneyManual.com and the author of the new book, The Military Money Manual, A Practical Guide to Financial Freedom. I'm here today with my co-host, Jamie, for another great episode. Today, we're covering leave in conjunction with official travel, or LICWO, LICWO, and circuitous travel for PCS.
That's right, Spencer. We'll teach you today how to take advantage of the benefits and the rules in the Joint Travel Regulations, or the JTR, to adjust your travel itinerary, flight options, and where you stop en route to a PCS or TDY location. And the best part of it is you get reimbursed for a lot of it or all of your airfare to a location of your choosing on the way to your new duty station or TDY location. Of course, be sure to check the JTR for the most current guidance. Everything we'll talk about today is current as of this recording in early 2022. And you can Google military circuitous travel, and even if you spell it wrong, don't worry, it'll help you out, to find the latest guidance on the militarymoneymanual.com.
Circuitous is a hard word to spell, but I'm getting a lot better with practice. So like we talked about, or like we just mentioned, we're talking about two different topics today, circuitous travel and LICWO. They're similar in that they allow you to take leave while you're doing official travel for the government and get reimbursed for it, potentially, if you do it right. But they are different. So one of them is circuitous travel. And that's when you take an indirect route to your new permanent duty station, or PDS, either to or from an OCONUS location. So when you PCS CONUS, and you just, let's just say, usually, like I did one from Washington, New Jersey, we just packed up the car, had the movers pick up all our stuff, and then they gave us 7 travel days, I think, to get across the country. I ended up taking 10 and took 3 extra days of leave, and we went to Yellowstone and all over the Midwest, or the American West, and it was awesome. It was great. But when you're going OCONUS, obviously you don't have the option of driving all the time because there's 2 big oceans in the way. So that's circuitous travel. Leave in conjunction with official travel, or LICWO, like we said, is when you take an indirect route and take leave on the way to or from a TDY location. So both allow you to get reimbursed up to what the government would have spent on normal flight options, and you can apply that towards your airfare for a trip to visit your family, friends, or just a sweet vacation, or if you just want to go somewhere else before or after your TDY or after your PCS. I've got a detailed article about both of the topics. Like Jamie said, if you Google military circuitous travel, it should be in the top 3 results or so. I think US Transcom is edging me out, but that's okay. It's an official source. But what I've tried to do on my website is just summarize from an Air Force perspective. So I talk about the AFIs, or the Air Force instructions, and also the JTR, but the JTR is relevant to all branches. So
Right.
For your specific branch, if you're Army or Navy, you'll probably have to go find your instructions. Sorry, I don't know which one it is, but I do know that this works from an Air Force perspective. And because it talks about LICWO and circuitous travel in the JTR, it is applicable to all branches. So it might be a little bit harder for you to pull it off in your branch, but it is possible. So I encourage you to go look, and you'll have a regulation somewhere that will help explain how to do it. So before we get started and dive pretty deep into this episode today, we just want to say thanks to many of our listeners for feedback, comments, ratings, book orders. The book has been selling great. I think I'm almost up to 200 copies sold, which is
that's awesome.
For a new author. I really appreciate all the love and support I've been getting, and people have been leaving great reviews on Amazon now. The book is up on Amazon, and sending me emails, and Goodreads is another great place that people can read or leave reviews. And then on the podcast, Jamie, as of this recording, I think we're up to 16 reviews on Spotify, 5 stars. So
yeah, thank you for that.
About that. So wherever you're listening to the podcast, if you find it helpful and you want to give a shout out to me and Jamie, just share it with a friend, leave a 5-star review, and you can help other military families to find kind of the niche resources that that you might hear about at some of these like finance or like PCS briefings, but a lot of times like the people who are talking about them haven't actually used them and haven't gone through the practical steps to actually get reimbursed for LICWO or for circuitous travel. But we have, we can speak from
Right.
real experience. I mean, Jamie, you just used it recently, so and I think we'll get into that later.
Yes,
later
we will.
in the podcast. Great. wherever you listen to the podcast, if there's a subscribe button or a alarm button, go ahead and hit that, and you'll get notifications every time that we drop a new episode, which is usually on Mondays. So,
lastly, we want to thank one of our top listeners, Luke. Hey, Luke, appreciate your support and feedback. He and his wife are big time travel enthusiasts and said they're big fans of the show and all things military travel hacking. He even makes his wife listen to some of the episodes with him. So thank you for that. We apologize, but it's good to be on the same page and motivated about the same topics. He told me that he hacked a great deal for his round trip flights to Chicago for their anniversary trip. So we love hearing stories about your success. Luke and everyone, thank you for listening. Keep up the good work, my friend. All right, this topic today is huge because the government will pay you, like we said, to travel where you want and up to what the cost they would have paid if you had flown direct. Sometimes it may even cover your whole airfare cost, depending on the city pair that you're trying to do. This almost sounds too good to be true, but the regulation, the Joint Travel Regulation, or JTR, like we said, 100% backs us up. It does take a little bit of extra work on your part, but it's worth it to get some free airfare in there. Spencer, do you have any good examples of using Circuitous travel?
Yeah, I think my best example was when we were stationed out in the Middle East in the United Arab Emirates for 2 years. We PCS'd from the UAE to my current duty station in Hawaii. And the cost of that ticket that the government estimated was over $2,000. And so what we were able to do is say, we were able to take that value for both me and my wife. So it wasn't just $2,000, it was $4,000 of airfare. And we were able to book flights different from what the government wanted us to take, the most direct, well, what they consider the most direct route to Hawaii, which went through Zurich and Atlanta and then the West Coast and then Hawaii, and it's like 32 hours straight of flying. We thought that just sounded horrible. So rather than do that, we booked our own flights and we ended up flying from Abu Dhabi to Zurich in business class. We were only reimbursed up to the economy rate, so that's important to remember there. Like I'm not billing the U.S. government
cheating. Yeah.
class. Nah, yep. You're only authorized up to economy, but I was able to book an economy and then upgrade the flight with Amex points. And then on that trip as well, we stayed in Switzerland, Liechtenstein. We drove through. That was awesome. Austria, Italy. We stayed at a castle and we had a private dining experience, which, I mean, we didn't know it was going to be private. We just showed up to the restaurant and, at 4:00 and they said, "What time do you want to eat?" And we said 7, and we came back and they opened just for us. So
wow,
that was pretty cool. Then we flew on we drove up to Geneva. I got a speeding ticket and I'm actually still wanted in Switzerland for that. No, I paid it. They found me. It took them like a year to find me, but that was an expensive speeding ticket. So don't speed in Switzerland. They have cameras everywhere. And then we went up to Edinburgh and we drove around Scotland for 5 days. Again, that was amazing. And we were able, along the way, we paid for so many of our hotels. Most of our hotels, actually, we paid for just with points or free night certificates. So we ended up staying at the Ritz-Carlton Geneva, which is still one of our favorite all-time hotels, with the wine tasting and the chocolate tasting experience when you checked in. And that was, we just cashed in some Marriott points and it was like an $800 a night hotel that we were staying in for free. And finally, to wrap up the trip, we ended up in Calgary in Alberta, Canada, and we visited Banff National Park and did some hiking up there for 3 days and then continued on to Hawaii. So it was a great trip. And again, all the airfare on that trip, or most of the airfare on that trip, was reimbursed because we used Circuitous Travel, and I was approved to book my own plane tickets. And so we were reimbursed up to $2,000 each.
Yeah, that's incredible. Oh, like once in a lifetime opportunity here. And so now let's dive into the details so we can share how you can do this if you PCS tour from Oconus, how you can take advantage of Circuitous Travel. Taking Circuitous Travel when you PCS tour from an Oconus base to a CONUS or Oconus base is legal, like we said, and an awesome way to take some leave, vacation, or holiday while moving from point A to point B. Basically allows you to take the scenic route along the way. The official definition is circuitous or indirect travel is any route, CONUS to Oconus, other than the one normally prescribed by the Installation Transportation Office between the official places listed in the member's TDY or PCS orders. And circuitous travel applies from CONUS, which is the contiguous United States or the lower 48, to OCONUS, which is basically everything else in the world except for the lower 48, or from OCONUS to CONUS or OCONUS to OCONUS. So a lot jumbled up there, but basically if you have any PCS that involves OCONUS anywhere, then you're good to apply these techniques.
That's right. We all know how painful getting PCS orders can be, so let's break down a little bit of the administrative process. It's going to start once you get your travel orders. So you're going to want to make sure that, I think at least in the Air Force, they have to get you your PC. They're mandated to get your PCS orders. Is it 45, 60 days before your PCS date? You really want to hold the military personnel flight or MPF to that standard, because it's going to take you a little. You're going to want to have those orders in hand, and you're going to need to do a little bit more paperwork to get the LICWO process approved, and then you're going to actually have to go book the plane tickets. So, and I've gotten in trouble before where I book the plane tickets before I get the orders, and then they won't reimburse you because you've booked the tickets before the orders are issued. It's the dumbest rule ever. The ticket is the same, but if the date isn't after the date the orders were issued, then they're specifically not supposed to reimburse you. So that's an expensive lesson learned. But thankfully now, with the way airline tickets are going due to COVID, a lot of times you can book a refundable fare, and it's not that any more expensive than a regular fare. And then once you get your tickets, your travel orders issued, as long as the price hasn't changed, or maybe it's even gone down. I've had a lot of times on Southwest where the price goes down and you actually get money back from canceling the ticket and rebooking it. So TMO is going to book your travel based on your orders, and they're going to find the lowest cost government fare tickets. They'll also look for rotators. So a lot of times, Patriot Express goes from Seattle to Kadena and Yokota and Osan Air Base. So if one of those is available, they're probably going to try to get you onto one of those. So you're going to have to kind of, especially if you're going to any of those locations that are serviced by Patriot Express, you're really going to want to finagle your order so you don't have to fly on one of those. The tickets that they are going to, so let's say, like, for instance, when we were going to Abu Dhabi from McGuire, there was no rotator available, right? The rotator that's available is for active duty only. Like, they're not expecting to PCS spouses to Abu Dhabi. So in that case, it was just looking for airfare essentially on an American carrier, on Delta or United or American Airlines, and seeing, okay, how can we get the person, either from Philly or from New York to Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
And they're going to look for usually the fully flexible Y class economy tickets. So you'll hear us talk about the different fare classes. So F is usually first class, obviously. J is business class, and then, or Juliet, and then Y or Yankee is usually the fully flexible economy ticket. So the JTR says that you can get reimbursed for personally procured tickets, but it's limited to what the government would have paid had you book through the Transportation Management Center, or TMC, over a usually traveled and direct route. So that allows you to pick a more favorable route, better layovers, and things like that if you get authorized to book your own tickets. So for instance, let's say you PCS from Fort Lewis, Washington to the Middle East, for example. The government option is going to be this horrible 28, 4 stops, straight shot from Seattle to wherever you're going, Dubai or Bahrain or wherever. So what you're going to want to do is take or email your orders and a copy of a memorandum that you're going to need to generate. And I have a template on my website, but it's usually in page 8 of your initial assignment briefing if you do it through virtual MPF. And I'm sure they're going to change this as soon as we record this podcast. But it is in there is a memorandum template about circuitous travel. And Jamie, did you see that recently when you guys PCS'd?
Yes, for sure. Just a quick reminder, though, if for the other services, they'll have some similar process. The template Spencer has on the article is going to be kind of Air Force specific, but like we mentioned, it is in the JTRs. Each service will have their own slightly different procedures, but look those up or contact your TMO for specific details for your base or service.
Right. So what you're gonna try to do is get a memo from your transportation management office, or a lot of times it's commercially contracted. For instance, here at Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii, it's called SATO, and they're just a company that provides travel services to the U.S. government. And what they're going to do is they're going to give you a cost estimate. So they're going to say, okay, if we book the ticket right, today, for the dates that you want, it's going to cost the U.S. government, we'll say $1,000, and they're going to email you that cost estimate. And then now you know how much you have to spend. So that's a great start right there. And where it can be kind of painful though is if you're on a route, let's say like you're going from Hawaii to Dallas, let's say, the government contracted fare for that route is probably like $200 or something.
Yeah.
Like the airlines are not making a lot of money, but on the flip side, they do get guaranteed revenue from the government. So, they're still making out just fine. They've been bailed out a few times during the COVID pandemic, so we're not shedding any tears here for the airlines, but they do provide a great, they do provide a service in moving us around the world. So we do appreciate that. But sometimes you will see, depending on like the route that you want to take, the government, especially domestically, I've seen it where it's like, coast to coast, it might be like just a couple $100, and you're like, well, I can't really do much with this, like as soon as I go and book one ticket, then I've used up my entire credit. But that's okay, because like at least that leg is free. Right?
It's still better than nothing.
It's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
So once you have the memorandum that says like this is the cost, you're gonna have to take that and your travel orders back to your MPF. So a little bit of Kafka-esque like bureaucracy running around here, but you're basically gonna take it back to your military personnel section, and you're going to ask them to add an amendment to your orders. And that's going to say, like, for instance, when I was going from Abu Dhabi to Hawaii, it said airman is authorized to self-procure transoceanic transportation at personal expense and will be reimbursed for the transoceanic travel. So you have to get that kind of verbiage, and it's probably the same for the Navy or the Marines or the Army. You have to get some kind of verbiage on your orders that says that you are authorized to self-procure your transoceanic transportation, and you'll be reimbursed for it. And then it'll usually add like the reimbursement limit is, and it'll just include whatever number was on the TMO memorandum. If you don't have that on your orders and you do this whole process, it's going to be such a pain in the butt to try to undo it and to try to get reimbursed, because you're going to have to get an amendment to the amendment, and you're going to have to
from your old base,
and no one's going to want to help you, and you're going to be out, whatever you spend on these tickets, you're going to be out of pocket, and it's going to be probably months until you're reimbursed. So make sure before you purchase the tickets that you have, and it's going to be painful because you're going to like be watching these tickets and you're going to be like, man, I really want to book these. But if you do it and you don't have that amendment on your orders, then it's going to be really painful to try to get reimbursed. The other nice thing about this too is you don't have to use your government travel card, because it says you're authorized to self-procure the transportation. So especially if you're trying to like meet a minimum spend on a credit card, or you want to use your Amex Platinum card and get 5x points, this is a great way to get those points and then get reimbursed by the government. So once you have that verbiage on your orders, though, then you are authorized to go ahead, purchase your tickets. You don't have to use your JTR, and
you don't have to use your GTC.
You don't have to use your GTC. That's right. Yeah. Always use your JTR though. So after you've got this memorandum, one thing that I want to highlight is whatever itinerary you told them that you were going to fly, it has to be approved on your orders, and you have to stick to that itinerary when you book the ticket. So this is really frustrating, especially for like someone who knows how to book airline. I mean, it's 2022. I mean, it's not the 90s anymore where you had to like, I don't know, how you booked airline tickets in the 90s. I'm sure you called or something. But, it's a lot easier now, and people are a lot more tech savvy, especially if you're like a military travel hacker. Like you could probably find a better deal than any travel agent,
right?
Or at least government travel agent. And so you have to stick to the itinerary that's on your orders. And so I've run into this problem before where I'll be like, oh, actually, I want to fly into New York City and not Philly. And so I'll book the ticket. I won't even think about it. And then when I go to get reimbursed, they'll say like, oh no, your approved itinerary said you were going through Philly. And it's like, what does it matter? Like
Right.
the dollar amount that the government is reimbursing me is not
Is no
changing.
different.
It's no different. So very frustrating as, a functioning adult to have to explain all my decisions to mother hen here. But that is a caveat that I will mention, is that once you have an approved itinerary on your orders, you have to stick to that, and if you don't, it's going to be really hard to get reimbursed.
Right. And if you try to change it, you'll have to go through the order amendment process again, get
That's
another
right.
memo,
Yep.
then get another amendment to your orders. And again, this is all before you actually book your ticket. So it's kind of a pain. Go ahead.
It's just like, I want to caveat right here too that, everything we're saying, it sounds like it's like super painful and not worth it, but at the end of the but it really can be worth it. Like I was saying with that trip that we booked, I mean, that was like I had to take leave to do it. And we obviously you're on the hook for your own hotel rooms. You're not getting per diem other than for your authorized travel day. I think it was only authorized like 2 travel days. But when you're getting all these flights for free because the government's reimbursing you for them up to the limit that they would have paid anyways, it's such a good deal.
Right.
It's maybe a couple hours of work for $4,000 worth of airfare. And I don't know what you make an hour, but I mean, it might be worth spending 100 hours doing.
Yes, good point. That's another thing I wanted to highlight, Spencer, is the leave thing. So when you add circuitous travel, it will cost you some leave days. So for example, when I PCSed from Hawaii to Alabama last year, my original orders had 7 days of travel. Their plan was to fly my family of 5, my wife and I and 3 kids, to Southern California, pick up a car, and then drive to Alabama from there.
Wow.
I'm not doing that with my 3 kids and 7 days in the car, 6 days or whatever. So, but they had authorized us 7 travel days. Once we got the amendment approved for circuitous travel, it also amends the number of authorized travel days, and we just got 1 day. So the rest of our time is all chargeable leave, which is fine. A lot of people in the military have a hard time taking leave anyway. So if you're having a hard time during PCS season, is a great time to tack it onto your travel. Your old unit kind of forgot about you, and your new unit doesn't know you yet. So just pile it in there, and no one will know any different. It's no big deal, totally worth it, but just wanted to make you aware that it will cost you a little bit of extra leave. Let's pause here for a moment, Spencer, here, and just hit on a couple important travel hacking benefits to keep in mind as well while the listeners are going through this process. You mentioned already minimum spends on a new card. PCS season is always a great time to open up a new card. If you're going to anyway and you're paying your bills on time and not racking up any debt or anything like that, you can easily meet minimum spend and get top hotel benefits, like we discussed in episode 18, where we talked about the best hotel cards for military families. One thing I do want to caution, though, is don't go personally procured route if you don't have the money saved up to cover the cost. You have an article about your PCS to Hawaii was a $20,000 PCS. My last one was closer to $10,000, but a PCS can easily be $5,000, $10,000, or even $20,000 that you may be stuck with for a couple months waiting for finance to pay out your voucher. So if you're behind on bills already, this may not be the game for you. So just a word of caution there.
Yeah, it's definitely that's a great word of warning there, Jamie, because if you don't have the cash saved up ahead of time before you get into this, you don't want to go into credit card debt over this. It's just not worth it. But with once you get, you kind of realize like, okay, I've got a year out until my next assignment, start setting aside the money and start saving, and you'll be amazed what you can do in a year.
Yes.
And the amount of money that you can set aside, and then you're going to get that money back too. So really, you just want it there as like a cushion to until the government finally decides that you're worthy of reimbursement. After however many months that takes of jumping through hoops and submitting different paperwork and getting amendments and everything. But once that money comes back to you, now that's your money in your pocket, and you can put that to work in your Roth IRAs, or you can put into your taxable investment account. Or maybe you've depleted some of your emergency fund because of the PCS, and you just want to kind of shore up your cash reserves. So yeah, that's a really, really good warning there. Another thing that I'll mention here too is if you're looking for a new credit card to open before PCS season, I've got a course, militarymoneymanual.com/UMC3 Ultimate Military Credit Cards course. And you can take that. I'll walk you through like which cards you should open up in which order. Just, if you don't have a Chase Sapphire Reserve, if you don't have an Amex Platinum or an Amex Gold card, a PCS could be a great time to open up one of those cards, meet the minimum spend, and then now you've got that card. Annual fee waived too if you're military, or if you already have one of those cards and your spouse does have one of those cards, you can meet the minimum spend during a PCS in just a couple months, and it's a lot easier. And it takes the burden off of kind of tracking, okay, like, are we going to meet the minimum spend on this when all of a sudden you have to buy $4,000 worth of plane tickets? You're like, okay, done.
Yep.
And I get and if it's the Amex Platinum, you get 5x points on it, and now all of a sudden you got 20,000 more Amex points in your pocket, which is great. So one thing that we talked about earlier was considering fully flexible tickets. Thanks to COVID, a lot of airline tickets are fully flexible now, and that's one of the few good things to come out of the pandemic.
Yes.
The other thing is sometimes, the American carriers are a lot more lenient if your orders get changed or revoked. So, I had a flight on Delta once that, I think this was it was probably pre-COVID, but I got my boss to write a memo saying, the TDY changed, or I can't remember the exact situation, but he just wrote the memo. I sent it to Delta, and they refunded the ticket.
Yep.
So
Same.
this is another good push here for military travel insurance. So USAA has a great product that covers
good point.
Military leave if your leave is changed or revoked, and usually all you need is just someone in your chain of command. It could just be like your supervisor. Basically somebody with more rank than you to sign a memorandum that says, hey, the leave situation changed, and they actually had to perform military duty instead of go on leave. And then I've never had any problems with USAA travel insurance paying out. And especially when I was flying a lot more, it was definitely valuable to it was a couple dozen dollars, maybe $50 at most. And I had thousands of dollars of airfare and hotels paid out because of that. A couple other caveats. When you are doing circuitous travel or LICWO, make sure that you read up about the Fly America Act. So that requires you to use American-owned airlines if available. And where this bites a lot of people is there might not be like an actual American Airlines tail or Delta, aircraft that flies into that airport, but they might code share with, with the foreign carrier. So for instance, I've got a friend who's going to Qatar in a couple of weeks, and he's flying Qatar Airways out of DFW, out of Dallas Fort Worth to Doha. But the ticket was booked through American Airlines. So it's code shared with American Airlines. And so foreign flag carrier, but you have to book it through American. And then where that becomes tricky is when you go to try to upgrade, it's a little, you might not have booked the fare class that you think you were booking. And then it might cost more points to upgrade to business class if you're looking at upgrading it. But definitely look into the Fly America Act. And I ran into trouble where I flew, I'm trying to remember it was Canada to Hawaii, and I flew on Air Canada, and there was a code share, like American Airlines flight that was available, and I should have booked that one, so I didn't get reimbursed for that leg.
So even though you're on leave status, it's still considered official travel that is bound by the Fly America Act? Seems kind of weird.
Yeah, so if you, especially for circuitous travel, you have to abide by the Fly America Act.
Okay, good to know.
Or you're not going to get reimbursed. Yep.
So Spencer, I wanted to share on my last PCS, I mentioned a little bit already, just some numbers to give an example. Our max reimbursable rate from Honolulu to Montgomery, Alabama was $539 per person. That's the one-way rate. The YCA fare from Honolulu to Montgomery. That was for 5 of us, including a full fare for my at that time 1.5-year-old, which was really nice to be able to get her own seat and not have to deal
Right.
with a lap child the whole time. What we
Yeah.
ended up doing though is we ended up flying from Honolulu to Philly. We took some leave there. Then we did Philly to South Carolina, took some more leave there, and then we picked up my car in Atlanta and drove the rest of the way. So all of that travel, we only paid $24 per person out of pocket for all the extra flying and all the other circuitous route that we did. So that's just a little example there. When we PCS'd to Hawaii, they wanted us to fly to Travis Air Force Base in NorCal, sit there for 2 days waiting for the rotator in a hotel, with 2 kids at the time, then take the rotator, which gets in like Sunday night at 10:30 p.m. Just a complete waste, unnecessary stress for the family. So we used Circuitous travel for that one when we moved to Hawaii as well.
Okay, now let's transition to leave in conjunction with TDY, or leave in conjunction with official travel, LICWO. So the approving official, the AO, whoever issues your orders, it's usually your commander, your supervisor, they may permit a service member or a civilian employee to combine leave or personal travel with official travel as long as there's no additional cost to the government. So let's say you go TDY from Washington, D.C. to Denver, Colorado. Your family's in Denver. You perform your official duty for 3 days, and then it's the weekend, and you want to fly back on Monday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you do your official duty. Saturday, Sunday, you don't. You're on leave, and then Monday you fly back to Washington, D.C. In that example, you'd receive the cost. Obviously, the government can just book your ticket from D.C. to Denver, and you get per diem for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You get no per diem because you're on leave on Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday you'd get travel day per diem, and you get your flight back to Washington, D.C. That's a pretty easy example. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is when you're taking leave en route. So let's say your family is in Massachusetts and you're going to Oklahoma. This is a real example of one of my troops recently. He flew from Hawaii to Boston, visited his family, and then continued on from Boston to Oklahoma. And then once he's done with his training, he'll go from Oklahoma right back to Hawaii. So in that case, they're just going to do the same thing they do with circuitous travel. They're going to look at the cost of the ticket from Hawaii to Oklahoma, and they're going to say it's $500 or whatever it is. That's your authorized reimbursed limit. And so when he booked the tickets from Boston, from Hawaii to Boston, then Boston to Oklahoma, I think it cost about like $600. And so he had to pay $100 out of pocket, and he was reimbursed $500. And so that's a good example right there of LICWO travel.
That's great because that's way cheaper than what paying for, a round trip ticket from Honolulu to Boston out of pocket would be. Way more than that.
Exactly. So with LICWO, you can take leave at the place that you're TDY and route to the place that you're TDY, or when you're returning from the TDY. So anywhere in the world, and you can do it before or after the official duty because it doesn't cost the government any extra money. So this is a great way. Like if you're going someplace really cool and you're just now, for a lot of TDYs, like you're there for a reason, and then you're going to leave on military transportation, and like you don't have a choice. But if you're flying commercial air and you're going to like a conference, let's say, or you're doing some training, or like I used to, when I was in Abu Dhabi, stationed out there, I used to have to go to Ramstein to get my flight physicals. So that was an example right there of where I would take LICWO travel. So the JTR says reimbursement is authorized for the actual cost of the transportation used, and the en route per diem limited to what the government cost would have been between the official duty stations using the policy constructed airfare, also known as YCA, and had there been no personal leave taken. So basically they just look what would be the cost of the trip if you just did it like they wanted you to, and that's the maximum that you can be reimbursed. So but that's good for you as a service member, because there's 2 types of airfare that they usually have available. That's constructed airfare, CA, and then the YCA is the fully flexible constructed airfare. So you can check this on you can Google GCA city pairs, and these are the federal government contracts airlines and says, okay, we need someone to give us flights every day. We need 100 seats from, or that's probably a lot, but let's say 10 seats every day, Washington, D.C. to Denver. And, United and American Airlines submits their bids every year. and let's say United says, okay, we'll do it for $100, and American says we'll do it for $200, and the government should say, okay, we'll go with United. And then that becomes the YCA, the fully flexible constructed or contracted airfare. So in fiscal year 22, I just looked, and so let's say you're going from Fort Sill or
Oklahoma
City to El Paso, then the YCA is $253 one way. So $253 each way. So let's say that you're going from El Paso to Oklahoma City, and you want to visit family there. Or let's say your family's in Houston, right? So you can just add that as an extra stop. And as long as that whole trip costs less than $500, and you pay nothing out of pocket, and you just have to take a couple days of leave. So that's a great, like that example I gave where my airman went to Massachusetts. I mean, if those tickets had been less than $400 or less than $500, then he wouldn't have paid anything, and then he basically got a free trip home. So, couple examples of how I've used LICWO. One of them was my wife and I, we were stationed in Abu Dhabi. I went to Germany to get my flight physical, and I just took 5 days of leave. I think it was on the end of it. It might've been on the beginning, but it doesn't matter. Like, the government doesn't care. Like, as long as you're there for your official duty, and as long as, the tickets don't cost any extra. So that was a $1,500 plane ticket that got reimbursed. We went to France, Switzerland, and Germany. And again, like, she doesn't, none of, like, I had to buy her ticket completely separately, but my ticket, I was able to, set up the route that I wanted to take. Another one was a TDY to Oklahoma from the Middle East. That was a $900 plane ticket, completely reimbursed. And I stopped by Florida for my brother's wedding on that one. And then one of our like best TDY LICWOs was Egypt. I was doing a TDY there. My wife flew out, and I just tacked on 3 days of leave at the end of the TDY, hung out in a super cool hotel right in the Nile River. We went and saw the pyramids, and all we had to do is pay for her tickets to come out to see me. And obviously the hotel, we had to pay for that as well once the official TDY was ended. Right. But and then also remember, like, a lot of times when they book you, the TDY tickets are going to be fully flexible, full rate economy, Y class fares, and they're going to include free cancellation, date and flight changes. So a lot of times you can just let the government book you the ticket, and then you can just call the airline and say, hey, actually, like, I wanted to, they said I was going to come back on Monday. I'm going to take a couple days of leave, and I'm going to come back on Friday, and they can just change the ticket for you without even, like, rebooking anything. So, and if you want to upgrade to business or first class, you can do it as well. So you just, use points. As long as it doesn't cost the government anything, then it's, they don't really care. So, and also the other thing I should mention here too, make sure you add your frequent flyer mile whenever you go on official travel, because it's very clear in the JTR, any points, loyalty, miles, anything that you earn while performing official travel belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the government. So make sure you add those details when you make the booking.
Just a really good episode today, Spencer. I think as we went over the circuitous travel and leave in conjunction with official TDY rules and the benefits of it, it's such a huge benefit to be able to adjust your flights, take some leave, hit some cool destinations, and enjoy some family time or downtime before hitting the grind again at your new base or at your TDY location, or after for TDYs. So you're not costing the government anything, and the joint travel regulations allow all of this. So the overarching themes apply to all branches, although some of the procedures we talked about may vary slightly. As always, we appreciate all of our listeners. And again, if you have time, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Share it with your friends if you think it'll help them as well. If you have any feedback or questions, you can reach us on Instagram at Military Money Manual or by email at info@militarymoneymanual.com.
We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Military Money Manual podcast.
Hey guys, it's Spencer again. Before I let you go, I want to let you know about my new book. It's called The Military Money Manual, A Practical Guide to Financial Freedom, and it's available right now at militarymoneymanual.com/book. This is the book I wish someone had handed me on my first day in the military. In this book, I cover the exact money tactics, investing strategies I use on my path to financial independence before age 40. I break down the math of FI and I explain the exact dollar amounts you need to retire. The book is full of easy-to-apply financial advice specifically for military service members and their families. I cover tax-free deployments, the thrift savings plan, and many more topics only military personnel can relate to. This book was written specifically for you, whether you're active duty, guard, reserve, a military spouse, enlisted, or officer. Both E's and O's will benefit from the lessons in the Military Money Manual. If you're in the Army, Navy, or Air Force ROTC, or if you're a cadet or midshipman at West Point, Naval Academy, and the Air Force Academy, this is the perfect book to start your military career with. Again, the book is available right now at militarymoneymanual.com/book, an audiobook, ebook, and my personal favorite, the hardcover book. The hardcover book was printed right here at home in the United States of America, and it will look great on your bookshelf. So check it out. Let me know what you think. And remember, podcast listeners can use promo code PODCAST to get a special discount. It's called The Military Money Manual, a practical guide to financial freedom, and it's available right now at militarymoneymanual.com/book. Thanks for listening.